morning, everybody. We're going to start today's Chitas, which is for a Monday, which we're holding in the book of Bereshis, Genesis, chapter 23, verse number 17. The second reading in the portion of Chayei Sodom. Vayokam's day Ephraim, verse 17, in the field of Ephraim, which was in the Asher b'Machpelah, which was in the Machpelah, stood up. Al Mamre, which was in the fields of Mamre, facing Mamre, V'amora Shavaya, in the cave that was in it, V'chola Eitz Asher Basad, and all the trees that were in the land, Asher B'chulu Gvulai, which was in the field and the entire border around, stood up. So Rashi says what it means by Yokem. It stood up. To Kuma Haisala, it means that actually the field arose. It got suddenly a recognition. It went out of the hand of a simple person. Yad Melech, it was transferred to the hand of a king, Avram Avinu. And according to simple interpretation, Yaakov means that it became part of his possessions. Verse 18. It became to Avram for possession. To in front of all the eyes of the children of Ches, all those that came into the gates of the city. So Rashi says, why did the Torah say this? To tell us that everybody was there to see this transaction. Verse 19. After that, Avram Avinu buried Sarah, his wife, in the cave, Machpelah, which was in the field of Machpelah, Apnei Mamre, which was in the facing the city of Mamre, Chevron, which is in the city of Chevron, Be'eretz Canaan, in the land of Canaan. So here the pasuk gives you exactly where this place was. So Vayokom Asada, again the Torah said the field and the cave within there was established Lavram, Lachuzas Kever, it was established to Abraham as a burial place, Me'ez B'nei Ches. The Torah has to keep on saying this because this is a hot spot, one of the hot spots of Israel, where people, Chas v'Shalom, contend that it doesn't belong to the Jewish people. Okay, verse number 1. And Abraham was old, and he was advanced in days. And God blessed Avram with everything. Bakoil. So the Rashi says, Baruch Hazram Bakoil, Bakoil Ola Begematia Ben. Bakoil has the numerical value as a son. Ben, and now that he had a son, he had to find a wife for it. Actually, the Bakoil over here is what we say in the prayer after eating, in the Birchas Hamazon, Bako, Miko, Koil. It says the three expressions. So here's the first expression, Bako, with everything. By Avram, it says Bako. Some people say actually he had a daughter, Bako. Avram Bako, it was his daughter, he called her Bako. But different midrashim. Zakim basic. So Avram turned to his servant, who was the elder of his house, which was the manager, the one who took care of everything that he had. And he said to him, take your hand, put it underneath my thigh. So now she says, Zakin, Avram Avinu, Zakan Beisai. Zakan is a grammar, vowel, the way you vowel it. So now she says, why did he tell him to put underneath his thigh? Since one must swear and take in his hand an article related to a mitzvah, such as a Torah, a person takes a Torah, he puts his hand on tefillin, and he didn't have any Torah. He didn't have any mitzvahs that the Eibishter gave him. The only mitzvah he had was circumcision. And circumcision was his first mitzvah. And he had fulfilled it with pain. So therefore, he told him to put your hand by my thigh, and you're, so to say, my thigh is connected to that mitzvah, and you will, so to say, be connected to that mitzvah, and you make a vow on that commandment. Verse number 3. You're going to make a vow. Hashem, Elokei Hashamayim, the God of the heavens, Elokei Haaretz, and the God of the earth, Asher tikach isha levni midei Canaan, that you will not take a wife for my son, for the daughters of Canaan. Asher niyecha yesh b'secha, you will not take a wife from those women of Canaan. We're going to find a wife. Verse number 4. You shall go out to my land and to my birthplace. And I will ask you to go there as a messenger to go to my own country, go out of Israel, to go and get a bride for him. Now Yitzchak couldn't go out of Israel, and that's why he could not go and get Rivka, because he was not allowed since the Akedah to go out of Eretz Yisrael. Yitzchak never left Eretz Yisrael his whole life, and therefore Avram needed to send Eliezer. So the servant said to him, verse 5, what happens if I go out there, I find a bride, but the woman doesn't want to leave her country, she wants to stay there? What's it? The girl does not want to leave. Should I go, come back home and take Yitzchak and bring him there? Verse number 6. Be careful. Yitzchak cannot leave the land of Israel. He needs to stay here. He cannot leave here. So the girl needs to come here. So if you don't find one, then he'll have to marry someone from here. Verse number 7. But therefore, Hashem Elokei Hashamayim asher lakachni mibeis avi, the Lord, the God of the heavens, who took me from my father's house, Me'eretz Meladati, and he from the land of my birth, Asher Dibeli, and he made a promise to me, Asher Nishbali, he said to me, and he made a promise to me, that he made a promise that this land, that to your offspring, I'm going to give you this land. Hu yishlach lecha malach, don't worry. He will send messengers, and don't worry, my God is going to be with you, and he's going to make sure that it's going to happen. So now she says, Hashem Elokei Hashamayim shakach mibeis avi. So now she says, over here, that Avraham Avinu doesn't mention the God of the earth, he just says the God of the heaven. And in the previous verse, before he says that I'll make you vow in the God of the heaven and the earth. So he told him, now he became that God of the heavens. And in the verse number 3, now after I came and I worked on, I did my avodah, I did my service in the world, and I made that the God's name should be called in the heavens and the earth. Because then that I taught the people to talk in the name of God. But when I left my father's house, God was the God of the heavens, but he wasn't the God of the earth. Because the people did not talk in God's name. Where's my house? From the land of Choron. Where was I born? I was born in Ur-Kasdim, which God spoke to me. So now she says, in general, when we say Asher Dibeli, God spoke to me, it doesn't only mean that God spoke to him. Litzorchi, when God spoke about me, for me, Asher Dibel Elai. And now she says in grammar that li, Asher Dibeli, doesn't only mean to speak to me, it means to speak about me. And it brings different proofs of different places. Asher Nishba li, when did he make this vow? Bein Absarim, when God asked him to separate the calves, and he had the famous dream that he's going to be in Golus, his children will be in exile. Verse number 8. If the woman will not wish to go after you, with you, then you are absolved from this vow. But you cannot return, you cannot take my son out of Eretz Yisrael. So that says, what happens in a kisi mishvuasi? You'll be absolved from the vow. He says, he'll have to find a daughter from this area, from Aner, Eshkel, and Amri. So it says rak. Every time it says a minus, every negative has a plus. Rak is bini. Only Yitzchak will not go back out of this country. Bini ain't a chayzer. My son is not going to return go leave the country and go to Charan even. But my grandson Yaakovinu will go to Charan actually to find a wife. So Avram says, he prophesies. He says, my son is not going to Charan, but Yaakovinu will ultimately, my grandson will. And the servant Eliezer took his hand and he put it by the thigh of Abraham, Adon of his master, and he made the vow on this concept. And that's how we complete the Chumash for the day. We will now go to the Tanya of the day. So the Tanya of the day is that we continue in the letter that the Alter Rebbe is writing about what is the power of a mitzvah. And the Alter Rebbe continues, and the concept of learning Torah, that through a person learns Torah in this world, and he does it l'shma, he does it for the sake of the with kavanah. He creates a Gan Eden atachton here, so to say. He creates a lower Gan Eden. He fills his lower Gan Eden, which is around him, this aura that's around him. He fills it with light, and that connects him to Gan Eden Elyon. It's like the pillars that connects him to the above world. This is the meaning of the statement of the sacred Zohar in Parsha B'Kudei, that the good deeds and the mitzvahs which man does elicit a garment from the light of a supernal splendor, meaning for the level of Keser, and they behold the pleasantness of God. And also, the Zohar concludes, they can experience the pleasurable thirst. The pleasurable thirst, which is the pnimis essence of Keser. Though there in the Zohar speaks of the lower Gan Eden, where the garments rise from the truly particular commandments, so that they result not from the supernal will as above, but from the merit of the physical action. Because ultimately, over here in this world, it's up to creating the physical action. The pillars below need to have the physical action. That's in Gan Eden Atachton. In the lower Gan Eden that's surrounding me in this world, I need to do, how do I fill my Gan Eden in this world? Is through actually learning Torah, through actually doing the mitzvah, through actually saying the words of prayer. Made in the Elyon, but in the upper Gan Eden, the garments derive from the love and devotion of the heart with respect to Torah and prayer, as stated in the Zohar. But in the Gan Eden, the Elyon, what's going to be really over there, the light and the excitement is from the kavanah, is from the lashma of the mitzvah, the lashma of the Torah, the excitement that I've done in the learning of the Torah. However, this devotion, from whence the garments arrive, refers to the devotion of one's occupation in Torah for its own sake, out of one's love of God. Mitzvah kav Talmud Torah, the command to study Torah. He Gamkein is also belongs to the class of particular mitzvahs. So even though we say, as we say, the greatness of Torah is that it has two things. Torah is a mitzvah, and Torah is for the sake of Torah, not for the sake of a mitzvah. Torah has a concept of understanding the wisdom of God. But there's a mitzvah in Torah too. You have to learn Torah. You shall learn Torah by day and by night. So there's a mitzvah in learning Torah too. And that's why Talmud Torah Kedeg Kulam. Because Torah, Akima Svasa, the movement of one's lips in speech, is regarded as an act. So therefore, Torah, when I'm learning Torah, not only do I have the wisdom of God, I'm also doing a mitzvah. I'm doing a mitzvah by learning, by saying the words of Torah. I'm actually doing an action. And the meditation does not count as speech. Thus, one does not discharge his duty by meditation alone. He has to speak. He has to do an action. Even though Torah is wisdom, so you think you can get away with wisdom. No, you have to express it with speech. Because in the world of action, you need to do a physical action. And so too in the concept of prayer, you need to do, when you pray, you need to say the words of prayer. And certainly so, consider that superiority of devotion over speech and action and certainly so, considering that the superiority of devotion over speech and action, in as so much as devotion creates garments for the soul in the upper Gan Eden. So therefore, in the upper Gan Eden, the most important thing is not the speech. The most important, because their speech is not relevant. Their action is not relevant. Over there, it's all about spirituality. What is spirituality in this world? The kavanah, the intention, the lishma, the sake of God. So he says, the Alter Rebbe says, over speech not as much as the devotion can create garments for the soul. The upper Gan Eden is not due to its own merits, as in the loving of the service of God. Don't think that you can create lights above because you can have great kavanah, but because of the radiation of the supernal will, because when I do a mitzvah, I bring about a Ratzon Elyon, the Alter Rebbe says. I bring about a supernal Ratzon. I accomplish the revelation of the Ratzon, the true will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the true will of God. And that creates a great pleasure to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That creates a great pleasure to God himself. And that's why, ultimately, the neshama, that's why even though I don't have such great kavanah in this world, but really the true essence of my Gan Eden Elyon is not only based on my kavanah, it's based on the Ratzon Elyon, the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's why tzaddikim and even great tzaddikim, great Talmid Chachamim, that they have all the understanding of God and they comprehend everything godliness, they still do a mitzvah for the sake of heaven, for God, because they understand this concept that if they want to receive a greater light in Gan Eden Elyon, the more that they put aside their kavan and they do it lishma for the sake of heaven, they have a greater Ratzon Elyon, a greater will of God is revealed in Gan Eden more than they can accomplish through their own understanding. As it's explained at length in Likutei Amarim, chapter 1, part 1, chapter 38, and you can see there Barichas at length. And that ends the Tanya for today. Now, my friends, you need to go and take a book of Tehillim. You need to take a book of Tehillim. Today is the 22nd day. You need to say the chapter 106 and chapter 107. And when you say these two chapters, you have done the chitas of the day. Have a wonderful, beautiful, happy, and healthy